Let's see what we got on the workbench today. We got, I believe, a 1964 Gibson Scout amplifier, and it's got the funky Gibson, which you don't see very often. I found a couple examples online where that G's got like a forward slash in it. Overall, in pretty good shape, fairly original. One little hole in the grille cloth, nothing too bad. A little bit dirty, but that's part of the course. And then these steel chassis tend to get a little bit pitted, so we got a little bit of rust and pitting, but not too bad. I think we'll wipe that down kind of with an oilcloth and see if it comes a little bit cleaner. The side's got a little stain that we'll probably clean off. It's got a non-original foot switch somebody rigged up. We might paint that and do a little work to it, make it a little better. Okay, this is the amp stock. You pretty much got to turn it all the way up, turn your guitar all the way up, and it's pretty thin. Not really that loud for what should be a 10 to 15 watt amp. And then you turn it up on the neck pickup, and it's still pretty thin and bright. That's about as full as you can get it to sound. It's not bad, but if we can take out that tone sucking network, I think it'll be a lot better. Okay, turn on the reverb, which is almost non-existent. You can tell it's there, but it's not strong, and it's set on 10. Okay, and turn the tremolo on. The tremolo sounds pretty good. Trying to get to break up, it doesn't hardly break up at all. An amp like this you should be able to get it to break up. Demo with the volume almost all the way up, reverb off, tremolo off, running through my pedal board with a fuzz pedal for a boost, Boss Wazacraft, and a Strymon Flint reverb turned on, so we got reverb. About the only way I can get this amp sound decent. If I run some pedals into it stock, it's just really thin and quiet. Here's the back side. You can see the bracket where the original fit switch would have went. And date code on the reverb tag, I believe, is 13th week of 1964. Looks like all plywood. Gibson labeled 10-inch speaker. And then we'll get the back cover off and look at the tubes. And they're stained up there, we can probably get off or try and clean. But generally, pretty clean on the inside for 1964. Somebody's probably cleaned it before, either that or took good care of it. We've got the original 2-prong cord. I'm going to change that out to a 3-prong. The Scout has loudness, so volume, reverb, tremolo, and on-off indicator light, and then a 1 amp fuse. And this is your higher gain and lower gain inputs. I think I'm going to take that one out, the lower gain. It'll probably never get used, and put a tone control in there like the original Gibson Falcons had a tone control, because this has no tone control at the moment. One little spot on the Tolex, a little bit tore up or split, whatever. Probably take a little black Sharpie or something, kind of trying to fill that in just a little bit, but maybe a little bit on this corner too. But, we might just leave it as is. It's not bad. The bottom of the amp, you can see, used to have feet, but the feet are missing, so we're gonna have to come up with some new rubber feet to put on the bottom. On the rear panel, we got 4 screws to take off. And all of them look tight, except that one looks like it's been out before or loosened up. So we'll get them off and see what we got on the inside. Yeah, 1 or 2 spots with a little bit of loose Tolex, but really not too bad there. A little bit there, but nothing too bad. Did turn this amp on and play it because it was advertised as working. He even had a video posted of it working, so I hooked it up, and it's pretty weak. It stays clean pretty well all the way up. Even get it semi loud at all. You got turned all the way up, and then it just seems weak and thin. The reverb almost non-existent. Now the tremolo sounds really good. So I think it's got that tone sucking network in it. It's got a little bit of hum, so it probably needs some caps, a little bit of cleaning and servicing, and it'll probably be pretty good sounding when we're done with it. Get the chassis out. Once we get that back panel off, so I've got 2 screws on either side, and then maybe the whole thing comes out. Hopefully we don't have to take that baffle out. And for anyone paying attention, 731441 is the serial number. GA-17RVT reverb and tremolo. Just was taking a look at this handle and realized we got one more screw up here that probably holds that chassis in. So I'll have to pay attention to that. And then the handle, it's got a piece of that Tolex built in it, and then just rivets through the wood. Here's a closer look at the Gibson crest that they used to put on these Crestline amps. A good look at that Gibson funky emblem logo. Looks original though. I don't think it's been ever changed. Got the back panel off now, and it is also plywood, not chipboard on like the later models. 4 little screws with a little bit of thin washers. They kind of inset. Okay, a little better look at the back now. Kind of a smaller power transformer. Looks like 12th week of 1964. Manufacturer was 996 for the manufacturer code. I'll have to look that up. I don't know who that was. And then rectifier tube, 2 6AQ5 power tubes, and 3 preamp tubes. I know this one's first one is a 12X7 in the reverb circuit, and that's the reverb transformer. And then us over here is the output transformer. According to the layout on the schematic, we got 12X7 all the way on the right, 2 6EU7s preamp tubes. The 12X7 is the reverb driver and recovery. V4 and V5 are 2 6AQ5s, which are the output tubes. They're real similar to 6V6, but a skinnier tube. And the looks like a 6CA4 rectifier tube. That's pretty much what we see up here. It's the 6CA4, 2 6AQ5s, 2 6EU7s, and a 12X7. The rectifier tube, 6CA4, Easy 81, made in Great Britain, Bugle Boy, Amperex. And let's see if it's got a date code. Maybe 49th week of 1963. I've got the two 6AQ5s out. Some of their writing is rubbed off or hard to read. But we got Made in USA Raytheons. And I have to look close and see if I can figure out a date code. I couldn't get the date code off the 6AQ5s. But this first 6EU7 is an RCA, and I don't see a date code on it either. But from the looks of it, these are all pretty old tubes. They're probably all originals. The second 6EU7, also RCA, made in USA, but no date code's been rubbed off. Somebody cleaned these in the past, and perhaps the guy that just sold it and rubbed it off. It happens. The 12AX7, almost all the writing's been rubbed off on it, but it is also an RCA, and it's hard to see much. There's a little bit of that red left on there, and it says 12AX7 up there. So, old RCA. Figure out the best way to get this out. Looks like two screws on the left, one screw up in the middle, and two screws over on the end. And then all the wires are hardwired. So you got short speaker wire, probably to unsolder that from the speaker. I think I'm going to install a jack there too for speaker. It'll probably be better, and I can try it out with different speakers too if there's a jack there instead of it being hardwired. And the other wires are probably just going to stay loose and connected. Reverb wires too, left and right, or color code them or something, since they don't seem to have any markings at all on them. I went ahead and took a little piece of red electrical tape and just arbitrarily put red for right with the tank in this orientation, just so it stays original, assuming that's the correct way from the factory. Then also notice this little retainer clip right there is broke off. Not sure where it went. To figure that out and put a new retainer on there. I've got some. Okay, taking a closer look at this speaker, I don't see any codes on it. They could be under that sticker, like telling me what the manufacturer was. We got two marks. On the left we got maybe a G and a dot. I don't know. I'm gonna see which is positive and negative with the battery test. And then up here we've got a little better light on there maybe. Green goes to green, black goes to black off the output transformer. Okay, here's the 9-volt battery test, and I'm going to put the positive terminal on the green side. The speaker goes out, so the green left side is the positive terminal. Looking at that again, I think that's actually a G and a B for green and black, and maybe they label them that way when they originally manufactured it. So I'm going to leave it that way. I was going to put a plus next to that green. I still may do that, but I'm going to leave the original symbols there that somebody put on there. Although it could have just been a tech in the past working on it too and had to desolder it and pull the chassis. We don't know if it's been pulled before or not. When we open it up, I guess we'll see if anything's ever been changed. Okay, looking up the EIA code 996, came back a couple different manufacturers. Habor or Grand Transformers or Grand Trans, Michigan. I think that's probably what it was. I don't think it's Habor. Maybe Habor bought them out or something. But probably these were made up by Michigan. The output transformer 549 code was Midwest Transformer and Coil. out of Chicago. And 166 on the reverb driver transformer is MC, or Magnetic Components manufacturer. So 3 different manufacturers for the transformers. These little wire retainer brackets, I had to get a little screwdriver in there, and then a little needle nose pliers and bend them open just a little bit to get those reverb wires to pop out safely. Okay, I've got the top screw out, and then I went ahead and laid the chassis on the table, and then we'll take the side screws out, and we've got the speaker unsoldered, and I think that will just lift out the back. That's what I'm hoping. And since it's laid down on its face, it definitely can't go anywhere and can't fall out on me. And all the reverb tank is disconnected. Just noticed that there's 2 sets of holes on these back door brackets here, so that it's definitely been off before the back door, but I don't know if the chassis has ever been out before. Hopefully not. Hopefully it's all original still, but it doesn't really surprise me that the back door has been off before. Probably somebody trying to get to tubes or take pictures or who knows what. Okay, chassis is free now. Let's go ahead and lift it right up on out of here, I think. And she's out. Mostly lifted right out pretty good. It kept catching on this little piece of Tolex a little bit. We'll glue that back down. But out. And on the workbench. And it's interesting, the ends are open on both sides. And then we'll take this little back panel off and then be able to get to the circuit. Note before we take this apart that there's a little bit of rubber stripping in there, and this I guess it's the top piece goes under, and then the bottom straight flat piece just goes over by the transformer. Under the backside, over that side. Screws on the bottom on this faceplate side are these little black ones, little bitty guys, and then the ones up on this side, on the transformer side, were these little silver ones, and one of them was longer than the others. I think it was a replacement, or maybe they just grabbed a different one out of a different bin at the original manufacturer. It looks old anyway. I think it was in this first or second position. I noticed it was a longer one for whatever the reason. Okay, time to pull the back panel off and see what we got. First glance looks pretty original. That's good. And it's got that Sprague tone sucker in there. Oh no, those those have been changed. Those are new. Hopefully that old one's out of circuit and not paralleled in. So if the electrolytics are done, that's at least some of them, that's good. That if they did a good job, then we'll have a little less work to do. Now the bypass cap electrolytics are still in there. Look at that. They left the old ones in and just zip tied these to it. That's not probably a bad way to go. So somebody's been in here before. We'll take a close look. Interesting. Very interesting. A lot of disc caps in there. Okay, before I get in here and get my hands in there at all, let's check for voltage. Check one of those new electrolytics. Got 8 volts on that one. Got 2 volts, 3 volts on that one. This one over here. Got 8 volts. That one 8 volts. So we'll discharge them and make the amp safe to work on. Alright, this is my discharge tool. I just clip it onto the chassis there. Got a resistor in line, 25 watts, 130 ohms, and I've got 7 volts sitting there. I'll put this right on there. And drain it right down to nothing. And that should have got all the caps. I'll put this tester, or this discharger, on each one of them, and then I'll double check them that they're all drained out, and they should be, and then we'll be safe. Okay, a few observations about the circuit. The Sprague death cap is still in. These are all 22s, and these are 22s. You look around hard enough, you can see it. They didn't make it easy to see, except for really on that one. And I'm not exactly sure on the manufacturer, but they look pretty new, and I wasn't getting crazy hum out of the amp, so I think I'm gonna leave them. And somebody was being funny, says this little piggy, and on their heat shrink where they're ground went back to the original. So they grounded these back to where the original ones were grounded, and same thing on these. They go back to the original ground wire. So the original ground scheme is left intact, and somebody put a little bit of goo down there to try and stabilize this one, but it still moves. And then this one also still moves, but I don't know, they're on the original manufacturer bands that were meant to move, so it's probably fine. I kind of like how they left those in there and then just zip tied new ones to it. I've not seen that before. So this we're gonna have to work on. That's that tone sucking network that shapes all the tone in this thing. I want to change that out and put a tone pot in. And then these old electrolytics, I'm going to test them, but I think they need to go. And I have a feeling getting rid of them will help the reverb. Maybe, hard to say, we'll see. Gotta figure out why that reverb is so weak. It just seems really, really weak. Okay, let's take a look at all 3 of the bypass caps. They're all 20 microfarad, and that one's at 25 volts. And then that one's 20 microfarad at, I think, 6 volts. And that one's also 6 volts and looks like a 20 microfarad up in there. Hard to read. I think every other cap is a ceramic disc, except for that .047 big orangey blob. And I've heard those are kind of unreliable, that style. I haven't had any dealings with them, so we may swap that out for a new cap, or we'll check it for what's leaking DC first. I think somebody changed these input resistors out too. These are 68 Ks and a 1 meg to ground, and should be 100 Ks on the schematic. So maybe they just went with 68s, or the schematic's wrong, or who knows what. But I think we're going to pull out one of those anyway and make it a tone pot. That's the plan anyway. Okay, we got the capacitor wizard out, and I was testing these bypass caps, and I can't really film it because I don't have 3 hands. But anyway, they didn't even swing the meter at all. They were in the bad. I tested 3 brand new 25 at 50 electrolytics, and they all work good. And then I tested these electrolytics that are newer installs by somebody, and they all test good. But all 3 of the electrolytic bypass caps got to go. They don't even swing the meter. They're gone. Okay, so testing a new cap. Good. Testing the old caps. Nothing. And this one Nothing. I mean, they don't even swing the meter at all. They're bad. They gotta go. But then these other new caps, good. I had 2 of these little brackets from, I don't even know what, some old project, and so I took one of them, I cut it down and put a hole in it, and put a 1/4-inch jack on there, and then we'll install it where the tag strip is coming off the output transformer, and then we'll have a jack there instead of wires just coming off for the speaker. There it is, all installed. Now it's just going to be jacked and go right to any speaker if you wanted to go to a different speaker. Nice and easy. Okay, jumped ahead here a little bit. Got the new electrolytics in there and there. And then on the schematic, it said I was supposed to have another one right there on the reverb circuit, and I didn't, and the reverb's been weak. So the schematic said I was supposed to have a 20 right there. So we put a 20 in, and what had been in there was this little Sprague 0.1. So from a 0.1 to a 20 made a difference, and definitely made the reverb way stronger and better sounding. So we're keeping that. And then the only old cap in there besides ceramic discs was this one. I've heard bad things about it, and I don't want to be back in here in a month, so went ahead and put a Mallory 150.047 in there. So basically now she's back to being healthy. I need to do the power cord, get rid of the def cap, and gonna make the mod now and get rid of the couplet and put in a tone control there instead. The next modification has been done, down to 1 input jack, 268Ks in parallel for 34K, and a 1 meg to ground reference. And then that brown wire went and was a ground reference for something else to the input number 2 jack. So we went ahead and just extended it a little bit and tapped it into the ground on the number 1 jack. So whatever it was going to that needed a ground is still going to the input ground jack. So we'll take that out now, put in a pot, take out the couplet, and have a tone control and get rid of that tone suck network that makes the whole amp not quite right. There she blows, the tweed tone circuit right there. Single pot. That was not too bad getting that sucker installed, and does sound a whole lot better and a lot of control over the highs and lows. And now the whole amp is way louder now that we got rid of the tone suck network in there. Big difference. Now it'll break up and overdrive and feedback and everything you want an amp to do. And the reverb might even got a little bit stronger. So this is not the original tank. We'll have to plug it back in and see how it's doing, but this is just a different tank that I happen to have that's working. I use the old Weller D440 heavy duty soldering iron to help install the 3-prong cord and do a chassis ground. We scratched the chassis up a little bit and then soldered it right on there. Then we got coming in, put 2 zip ties on this side and a zip tie on the other side, and then we'll put a screw-on retainer into the cabinet. Hot comes in, top of the fuse, and goes out the middle of the fuse to the switch, and the switch through the transformer, back out the transformer to the white wire, and back out. And in this white wire and on this side of the switch is the across the line indicator light. Got to put that across the line for it to work. Okay, made one more change. The amp is sounding kind of harsh, so I changed these 3 caps from disc caps to poly caps, and that made it sound better to me. And all the later Crestlines Scouts all have poly caps. They actually went to orange drops, so I was surprised when this had a bunch of ceramic discs in it, because then actually other earlier ones and Falcons I've seen just had this kind of poly cap in it. So having a lot of ceramics seemed a bit odd and just was kind of harsh on the sound. So changed it to back poly caps and sounding quite good. And that tone control is very, very versatile. You can do a whole lot of different sounds with it for sure. All right, one more last flyover before I button it all up. And here's the casualties of war, or amp repair, as it were. Now, some might say I should have left those ceramic discs in there, but I think it sounds a lot better without them personally, and definitely that thing needed to go. That opened the amp up quite a bit. I mean, unbelievably, night and day difference. And these were just stone dead. They were definitely due to be replaced. And that was the death cap. And one last look at the schematic. Down on the first stage, we ended up getting rid of that tone suck network, put in a 0.02, and the tweed tone pot, tied back in on this side of the volume pot. Then let's see, we put in a first cathode bypass of 25 microfarads instead of 20. The second one, we ended up going with a 0.68 instead of the 0.1 that was in there. Then we changed both these coupling caps to 0.02s. And then down in the reverb circuit was a 0.1, shows a 20 on the schematic, 10 ended up sounding best in the reverb bypass cap. And this is actually a 12x7. On the schematic, it shows 6EU7, but that's not correct. It's actually 12AX7. This one was a 20. We put a 25 in for cathode bypass. And then this 0.005 coupling cap coming out of the reverb. We ended up putting another 0.005 in parallel to make a 0.01. One ceramic, one is poly, and that boosted the reverb. And let's see, we ended up changing the bypass cap on the output tubes. It was a 20, we put a 25 in. Tried a 50 in there and it was just too much bass. It didn't sound right. That's about it. Okay, one more mod that made a huge difference, especially in the bass response. I played this for a couple weeks and the bass just didn't ever sound quite right. So right after the volume pot, you had this 470K resistor, and I tried just paralleling in under 470K and got to like, I don't know, 220 or something like that. And it was okay, but the bass just wasn't quite right. The mid-range was good and the highs were good. But I put in a 68K. At first I tried it, just bypassing it completely, and that was okay, but it really made the amp have no headroom then at all, and a little harsh. So 68K is, I played around with it. That seems to be the right value. And I played around with two different kinds of carbon comp resistors and a carbon film, and the carbon film just sang the best by far. These were okay, but there was definitely a difference. So I wasn't planning to put the carbon film in, but it sounds better, so that's what's going in. One last modification to make it more like a Gibson Falcon. We went ahead and added the Gibson Falcon line out, and it's basically just a jack and two resistors across the speaker leads. And how we accomplished that was in a small pedal box, 1/4-inch jack, shielded cable, definitely want shielded cable, up to the two hot and negative terminals, and I'll roll in what it looks like inside the box. But basically it's just that circuit just inside the box and a terminal strip in there to help facilitate. One last pass before we seal this circuit up. pull this reverb tank out, clean it a little bit, kind of check things. It doesn't seem to sound as good as the other newer reverb tanks, so we're just going to check it out and see what we got. Looks like 4 screws. Clean the contacts real good. I don't know if this 1964 tank's ever been out or not. Got screws loose. Most of them stayed in there with the little rubber or fiber washers. And we got some fiber board on the bottom that might be glued on. It's loose on that edge. We'll real carefully see if we can get it off without damaging it so we can see the insides. I ended up having to run a razor blade in through here real careful like, because it is glued on. And we'll see if we can't carefully get it off now. See what we find inside. Cardboard stayed in mostly good shape. Okay, now we're inside. Some ancient foam blocks to keep it from bouncing too bad. That's kind of cool. I haven't seen that before. And some old, really loose springs. Reverberation unit, U.S. patent 2982819, Canada. Janesville, Wisconsin, subsidiary of Hammond Organ Company, made in the United States of America. Interesting. Seems in generally good shape, I would say. What I think I'll do is just kind of try and clean some of the dirt and funk off, and then we'll clean the contacts real good in case it was kind of weak because of that at all. And now we can see it is actually able to output and input. We couldn't see that ever before because it was down in the cabinet. And we'll give it another try. Here is the back panel, and it had a bunch of white staining stuff up here and pretty bad there. And I just took some Lysol all-purpose cleaner, sprayed the whole thing down, and just scrubbed it with a old toothbrush, and then just wiped it off with a paper towel. And I think it looks pretty good. It looks a lot better. So I think what we'll do, come over and try and get that same stuff off the cabinet and kind of give the whole cabinet a clean, because it's pretty grimy as is, and see what it ends up looking like afterwards. And we're going to try a new Eminence Legend speaker in there. This one just seems, it's okay, but it's kind of weak, and it's got a really small magnet on it, Alnico magnet. So we're going to try a 75 watt Eminence Legend 8 ohm speaker and see what we think of that in there. Time to also clean out the funk down the bottom. And to address a couple pieces of loose Tolex, take a little bit of weldwood contact cement, put it on there, and let it get tacky, and then stick it down. That'll be good. Let's see if we can't clean this top up a little bit. It's pretty dirty. Just going to use some of that Lysol all-purpose cleaner, which worked real good on that back cover, and see what it does to the cabinet. I gotta say, this thing appears to be cleaning up quite good. A lot of dirt coming off the rags and just cleaning up nicely. We're not going to do anything to the grill cloth. We're going to leave it just the way it is, but if we can get some of the old dirt out of the Tolex and brighten it up just a smidge, it'll look real good. Clean and shiny. Well, now that it's dried, this Tolex cleaned up real nice, and cleaning it actually revealed a couple of old cigarette burns They're pretty dirty before. I could kind of see there was something black there. Now I can tell. I'm pretty certain those are cigarette burns. So that's kind of cool. But it cleaned up quite good. The non-original foot switch that came with it, I think it was a crate, and I sanded off the few words and Made in China stuff that was on there, took it apart, and he's got the reverb and tremolo kind of backwards compared to how Gibson usually has them. Gibson usually has the tremolo on the left, and this reverb has a isolation washer to note. I'm going to take this apart and repaint it a fresh coat of black, and then maybe a little color on top of that. We'll see. Well, some might say putting a tone knob on a Scout is sacrilege, but this amp did not sound good, and now it's more like a Falcon, Gibson Falcon, and it sounds so much better and so much versatile. You want that screechy high, you got it, or you get a little more bass and a little more mids right in the middle, and so much more versatile. Well, that turned out pretty good. I'll spray rattle can paint, and then label maker, reverb and tremolo. A lot better than the original crummy old black box. Now I got something custom, a little bit of color and half bad. I'll put back together. Plastic ends, steel backing. Put a couple little rubber stops on there. Rubber grommet. From pretty ugly to pretty cool and custom. Okay, this is to demonstrate the stock speaker now after all the mods, and it sounds nice and sweet at low volumes, but you really can't turn it up very much. It gets sounds blown basically. Okay, maybe halfway or so. That sounds. Got new rubber feet from Antique Electronic Supply. And go ahead and install. So much better with new feet. Keep that bottom from getting all messed up. There's the old one. Got a pretty good hole in that dust cover. And that doesn't look too bad, but couldn't handle any bass. Maybe a little crack right there on that edge. There it is with no speaker, and we're going to be real careful not to poke a hole in our brand new speaker to line two of these up, and then the other two should fall right in line. This Weber is labeled plus and minus, but we'll still test with the battery and make sure plus on the left and speaker goes out. So it is labeled correctly. Whenever I'm going to solder a speaker up, I put a piece of old t-shirt or something in underneath there in case a piece of solder drips. It won't drip on your cone and accidentally burn a hole right in it. Especially a good idea on a brand new speaker. The old speaker couldn't handle the volume and the bass of the mods, and so now got the M&S Legend 1058 in there. Sounds very good. Okay, back panel back on, reverb tank back in. Schematic chilling underneath the reverb tank for somebody in the future, maybe even me. Since this amp wasn't labeled on the tubes, I figured I'd go ahead and label them for anybody in the future so you don't accidentally stick a 6EU7 in a 12AX7 slot. Trying to replicate one of those Gibson knobs really somewhat, and taped it off with a little red or a little triangle, and then sprayed a little clear, and then we'll spray a little red and then maybe a little clear over it. Then we should be able to have a painted on red triangle for our tone knob. All painted up. Let that dry till morning, and we'll pull that blue tape off and see what our red arrow looks like. Alright, now we got the M&S Legend installed. Time for a quick little sound test.